Let us talk now, though, to Tasmina Ahmed Sheikh, chair of the Alba Party, a woman who put on one of the greatest shows at the Edinburgh Festival over the past week or two, which was, of course, the debating show The Eyes Have It. I was fortunate enough to take part in it. Luckily, they didn't ban me before I got up there, Tasmina, like they'd have to Graham Linehan, but we may get into that later on. But very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Mike, and you're a very welcome addition to the show, and I suppose that show demonstrates how it is possible to have differing political views, but it doesn't mean to say that people's arguments should be shut down. I mean, let's face it, you were in the public sector workers' right to strike debate. You were speaking against the motion. You insulted perhaps about 80% of the audience who are public sector workers. However, they thought that you should have the opportunity to express your opinion. I suppose that has good relevance to what we're about to talk about relative to our Rishi Sunak. It's Scotland's oil poster.
Well, it does, because this is a remarkable situation, right? You guys are, like many other parties, fighting a by-election coming up because one of the SNP members has decided to perhaps not fight again after what happened to her. But basically, Global, which is the big sort of organisation that runs all of the kind of poster sites, all of the advertising sites, and also runs one or two radio stations, they basically have said to you that you cannot put up a poster, which we're looking at right now, of Rishi Sunak, because they're saying that it's somehow disrespectful of him. Tell us about that.
I think they said, to use their words in inverted commas, they said it was slander. So to give a bit of context, this advertising campaign is off the back of what we anticipated would be healthy JERS figures for Scotland, which were released today, which demonstrates an increase in revenue of Scotland over 20%, compared with UK at just over 11%. And of these figures, 6.9 billion comes from oil. And this poster was to serve as a reminder. It's almost a reproduction of a very successful SNP poster from the 80s, which was Margaret Thatcher saying the same thing, basically. Right. She's happy because she's draining the oil out of Scotland for no material benefit to Scotland. So this poster is to demonstrate that what happened in the 80s is happening now. It quite clearly has an element of humour in it. And to be frank, political satire and humour has been around for decades. The idea that we shut this down is absolutely absurd. So Global accepted advertising from the Alba Party. We provided what that advertising was going to be. Yeah. They then said they weren't going to use these posters because they deemed it slander. But if we did want to advertise, we could say, vote Alba. So not only are they telling us what they won't put up, they're telling us what we require to say for them to put posters. And you mentioned, indeed, Mike, quite correctly, the upcoming Rutherglen by-election, and our party, the Alba Party, is due to decide whether we're going to be fighting that by-election, a particularly distasteful by-election, I should say, given the context of it, and just 10% of the entire electorate voted for the recall petition. But let's put that to one side at the moment. But that would allow us then not to actively participate in that by-election, giving political messaging, which is hugely important. And it's hugely important to Scotland because we were told in 2014 by the Better Together Labour and Tory pals, comrades, that Scotland's oil was running out, and therefore an independent Scotland couldn't be successful. And then we have Rishi Sunak sauntering up to, or flying in a helicopter, no doubt, up to Scotland to issue 150 new licences after telling us that Scotland's oil and gas was running out. So this poster is to serve as a reminder that the Tories cannot be trusted with Scotland's oil and gas and natural resources. And that's just, you know, the scratching the surface, Mike, because you know we have a bounty of renewable energy potential. But we're not going to entrust Rishi Sunak and the Tories with Scotland's potential, particularly when Scots in Scotland, in a land of energy plenty, are low poverty.
And it seems to me, regardless of whether or not your statement is a statement of truth or fact, or whether it's just opinion, that doesn't matter to me. You know, you're a political organisation, you should be able to say whatever you like. We've got the poster we're looking at now with Rishi Sunak. He's done up as a bit of a vampire. I think we've also got the original Margaret Thatcher poster, which was the SNP's version way back when they painted her as a sort of vampire with the you know, the high collar and the teeth and all the rest of it. Now, nobody stopped that advert from going out. So what's changed, and what exactly have they actually said to you? Which part of your advert is slanderous? Because I can't see it.
They've just said that it's slander, and I'm sure, Mike, you don't walk about metropolitan London and decide that you agree or disagree with various advertising campaigns. You know, it's up to you to decide as a consumer whether purchase the item or vote for the party whose campaign it is. And of course, I don't know why they're being so precious about it, and who's giving the instruction that this is slanderous, that our posters can't go up. Because quite frankly, you know, if they're going to dish it out, they should take it back. I mean, they dished it out in 2015 when there was a picture of Alex Salmond pickpocketing a Tory party poster, pickpocketing the pocket of Ed Miliband. We didn't go up in furore about that because we believe in political satire, and people who believed that message was correct obviously would vote for Alex's party, and those who believed there was it was incorrect, you know, would vote the other way. But, you know, the idea that we're taking away agency from people to make their own decisions about posters and advertising campaigns is ridiculous. If we were to put up a poster that just said, vote Alba, people would say, why? This poster gives them a reason why they should support Alba, because amongst many other virtuous things, we are the only party that believes in independence for Scotland, that doesn't want to sell the oil and gas sector down the road, but believes in a just transition that respects the oil and gas workers industry and their families. But of course, are well cognizant of the bounty of renewable energy and how that should be harnessed for the benefit of the people of Scotland, not squandered away. We have nothing to show for the oil and gas boom. In fact, the Treasury hasn't even set up a sovereign wealth fund. So quite frankly, it's despicable that we are being obstructed from making a very important political point. And how far does this go, Mike? There's going to be a general election next year. What if a Labour poster was to go up and Globe was saying, no, we're not going to put that up anymore? We have got interference by commercial companies in elections by political parties, removing from the public whether they should vote or not for a particular party. Quite frankly, it's taking free speech or abolition of free speech or abandonment of it to another level altogether.
Well, I was reminded, Tasmina, of that Blair advert. Do you remember the Tony Blair?
With the eyes?
Yeah, the Dangerous Eyes advert. I think we've got that as well. I remember when this went up, and it had quite an effect, and people knew Labour, knew danger. I mean, as it happened, it didn't actually work, but it turned out to be very actually true, because nobody actually realised quite how dangerous that was all going to be. But, I mean, the funny thing about Global, and I'm sure that this would not be in any way a connection to why they've taken this decision. You know, they do own some radio stations, and they do give a very good platform to Keir Starmer and Sadiq Khan on one of their radio stations. I'm presuming that's not because they're particularly pro-Labour, so you wouldn't think that they would pass that kind of policy on. I'm sure that wouldn't be what they would do to their advertising outdoor hoarding scenario. But it does make you wonder, doesn't it, that there might be some form of influence being peddled here.
Well, as you have so expertly discussed on your programme in the past few weeks, what's happened with Coots and Co and who cannot have accounts because they don't agree with viewpoints. This is just another manifestation, it would appear, of the same thing. Now, of course, it's perfectly within Global's hands to decide to reverse their decision and accept our post. I mean, at the end of the day, thanks to them and thanks to the excellent broadcasters out there and the newspapers, they've given us plenty of coverage of this post. So they sought to deny public access to, and all that's happened is direct opposite. So I suppose, you know, all publicity is good publicity, but there is a wider concern here for all of us, and it's the idea of free speech and, you know, that it's no longer possible. Why are companies whose job is simply to conduct their business, whether it's banks or whether it's advertising agencies or whatever, why do they then feel that they have a place, or it's even proper for them to assert some kind of authority over what the person who's having an account with them or taking out advertising with them can say in that advertising? Now, this is serious because it's politics. We're going to have elections. We have an election by election coming up. There's a general election next year, and it would appear that certain organisations are trying to stymie free speech and the ability for political parties to participate on an equal playing field. And when we don't have free and fair elections in this country, we have something greatly dangerous or worrying to be considered.
Absolutely right. Before I let you go, Tasmina, I just want to play you a little bit of Graham Lenihan, who spoke to Julie Hartley-Brewer this morning. He's had his show axed by the Edinburgh Festival, by a particular venue up there, who decided they didn't like some of his views on the trans debate. Have a look at this.
Well, it was announced in the morning, and I was quite surprised they announced it, because it's always a risk to announce me appearing at something, and it was cancelled within a couple of hours, maybe. You know, I mean, you do get used to this type of thing after a while. It's never pretty, it never makes you feel good, but you know, the only good thing about it is that it's drawing more attention to the fact that, you know, essentially a group of highly ideological cultists have taken over institutions across society.
Well, he won't be playing tonight, but maybe they'll do it in the car park. I mean, it's a bit ridiculous to have an arts festival that's so censorious, isn't it?
I really do not understand the thinking behind any of this. The Edinburgh Fringe Festival is a festival we've been very proud of up here in Scotland, and of course internationally. It's supposed to be the bastion of free speech and comedy and entertainment and all the things you can expect from it. So I simply cannot understand why anyone thinks this is a good thing. You know, as you know, Mike, I was able to very successfully put on a show which demonstrates that there are different sides to every argument. There was respectful debate. We involved school children in that debate. We created an excellent space to encourage that debate, and everyone involved did us proud, and particularly the young people. You know, 14-year-old girl from Boxburn Academy. Now, these young people should be allowed to attend events, hear different arguments and formulate their own opinions. Enforcing opinions on young people, or indeed anyone in society, is quite frankly unacceptable. We seem to be going backwards, but we're going to have to push back against this, and that's what we're doing as part of this poster campaign, and I'll continue to do in my role as chair of Alba Party and indeed a producer and director of stage and television programs.
Excellent. Well, I should look forward to the next production. Meanwhile, I've got a couple of tweets have come in asking me to correct you on the fact that it's not Scotland's oil, it's Britain's oil.
Well, I mean, it is Scotland's oil because that's where it's due. I mean, you know, one could anticipate such arguments. If it was Britain's oil, which I don't believe that it is, I think it's a Scottish resource, then they should be asking questions of the British government as to what they have done as custodians of that to better the lives of the people across the UK. Not even a sovereign wealth fund, nothing to show for it. They've used Scotland's resources to prop up their own treasury. Shame on them.
Well, listen, if I was running the Treasury, I'd pay you good money for it and call it mine. But that's the way it goes. Unfortunately, I'm not running the country. Tasmina, good to talk to you. Tasmina Ahmed, Sheikh, chair of the Alba Party.